he's brilliant. He's like Mr. Harvard, Yale, Stanford guy. And he's also really, really strong.
You don't want to go for the challenges. Okay. I mean, I agree. I just need intelligent. I do not want that boy thinking anymore.
You know, I don't really have an option here. I got to figure out something that's going to work, and this might work.
Audiences first came to know Yul Kwon last fall as a contestant on Survivor. Throughout all of the challenges, what mattered most to Kwon was setting a good example for Asian Americans.
You know, you were on the 13th season, Survivor, Cook Island, in 2006, and that season was particularly controversial because I think that's the season where they started dividing the teams up into ethnic tribes.
Right.
And so how did you feel about that?
I thought it was a terrible idea. I mean, what? Are you crazy? That's awful. Right? Like, get me out of here. But they didn't tell us. I got recruited through kind of a random friend.
Recruited?
Yeah, no.
Oh, how did you get on the radar to be recruited?
They were looking for a nerd, I think. I think they were, they had this whole idea of War of the Races, and they wanted to try to find someone. Okay, let's find some Asian guy who, went to good schools and is going to be a geek, right? So what happened was a scouting agent contacted a friend of mine, and she emailed me and said, hey, I'm going to recommend you for this thing. Like, are you interested? And when I started talking to the scouting agent, I wasn't that interested at first because I was just thinking, God, this is such a weird thing to do. Like, why would I go on a reality show? But I thought about it, and again, I realized that I didn't have the kind of role models when I was a kid that I think would have helped me. And even today, if you look around, I mean, there aren't a lot of opportunities, especially for Asian Americans on television. And so I really thought, look, this is an opportunity, not for me, but for my community, right? And I didn't ask for it, but if I pass on this opportunity, then I feel like I'm missing out on a chance to do something that could help other people and change the image of Asian Americans, in this country.
How did your parents react?
Oh, they freaked out. And my dad was like, why do you hate us so much? What are we doing? No, my dad was just like, he just couldn't understand it. It was like, why would you throw away your education and career just to embarrass, myself, yourself, your family, and Korean people all over the world by going on a stupid reality show? And it was tough. It took me a long time to convince him, because, and actually I did have to convince him, because to go on Survivor, you have to sign a legal contract. And there's a waiver of liability that says that if anything bad happens to you, you'll waive your right to sue CBS.
Oh, wow.
And your parents have to sign that waiver too.
Oh, God.
Even though you were an adult, they still have to come in and sign.
If I die, right?
Right.
My
The parents to come after the network,
right.
sure.
So, and my dad was like, well, what are you talking about? What do you mean you might die?
I thought it was a TV show.
Now, one of your castmates, Rebecca Becky Lee, made it to the top 3.
Yeah.
Did you have a special affinity with her because she was Korean? Tell us about your relationship with her.
So she was the other Korean American on the show, and immediately we bonded. And I think there were lots of different reasons. One is I think because we are both Korean American. But more than that, I think it was because she was a nonprofit attorney who had devoted her career to helping battered women, right? And so I'm thinking, like, look, first of all, if you're a lawyer and you're not working at a law firm, you're not motivated by money, right? If you're doing something like domestic violence work, I mean, you're doing it because you want to help other people. And I knew that her reason for being on the show was because she wanted to use it to raise awareness of this issue. So I'm thinking, like, look, I mean, she's not in it for the money itself. And if your whole career is predicated on you being able to earn trust from people who are very vulnerable, you're not going to compromise that. You're not going to compromise that by doing something really underhanded and dirty on television, right? So I figured I can trust her, right? I mean, she's doing it for the right reasons, and she's not going to do something stupid just to try to become an actress on television.
Wow, that was very strategic analysis up front.
Yeah, I mean, I spent a lot of time thinking, I didn't want to align myself with like young people who want to become actors, because they'll do crazy stuff, right? But if you work with people who have careers, who have families, who care about their standing within their community, they're not going to do something that's going to make them look bad in front of their family.
And then after you won the show, people labeled you as the $1 million man, and everyone wants to know where the prize money went. And is it in your bank account? Did you donate some of it?
People always ask me, what does it feel like to be a winner, to be a millionaire? I'm like, well, I only was a millionaire for a few months, and then I had to pay taxes, right? I take most of that money, or half of it. I didn't do anything crazy with it. People, I think, always ask, like, did you do something wild? Did you buy, like, a Lamborghini, or did you go to Vegas and, spend all the money on gambling? Like, no, nothing like that. I donated a big chunk of the money to different charities, including to the Asian American Donor Program. I, gave some money to my family, and I basically just invested the rest.
Well, on the show, you demonstrated a seriously sculpted, sexy body.
I was on the no-fat diet because I had no food. Yeah.
Well, that got you on the on People Magazine's sexiest
It's a massive fraud.
sexiest men alive list.
Complete misrepresentation.
Yes. Now, how did you feel about that? Did you have a body like that all along?
Again, starting in high school, I really started working out a lot because I didn't want to get bullied. And so I'd been in pretty good shape. But by the time Survivor came along, I hadn't worked out in a while, and I'd gotten pretty flabby. But, one of the things I wanted to disprove was a stereotype that Asian men can't be athletic, that they can't be sexy. And so when I had 6 weeks before I was going to go on the show, I worked out like crazy. Like, I was just, I worked out twice a day. I lifted weights in the morning, I did cardio in the evening, and I just tried to get in as good shape as I possibly could. It turned out, actually, that wasn't the right thing to do. Like, on Survivor, like, you don't actually want to have, like, a gym rat body, right? Like, you want to gain some fat, because you're going to lose all that anyway. So I came in so lean that it was actually pretty hard, because, there was no fat reserves, and, you basically are breaking down muscle at some point. But, after the show ended, it's still weird for me to think of myself as like someone who goes in People's Magazine's Sexiest Man Alive issue. I don't think of myself as sexy, and you can ask my wife. I don't think she does. But
I'm sure she disagrees.
But for me, I think it was just important that someone from our community got that kind of recognition. And if it's me, it's me. If it's somebody else. But I'm glad that we're able to kind of break down that stereotype and help portray Asian American men as capable of being, sexy.
While you were on the show, and of course everything that happened afterward, you stirred the hearts of many women, including your wife, I understand.
Yeah.
Tell us how you met.
So that's a funny story. On the show, one of my tribe mates was a man named Brad, who was Filipino, he was gay, and we became very close friends. After the show ends, so what happens is you film everything on the island, then everyone votes for the winner, and then they seal the vote, so you don't know who wins. So, and then you all go back home. The season starts airing, and during the second episode, I was in San Francisco. My friend Brad was down in LA, and he had a viewing party with a bunch of his friends. So he invited one of his friends who brought along his cousin, who was a woman named Sophie. So they're watching the episode, and it was a great episode for me, right? Because I lost my shirt, right? So So Sophie's watching this thing, and she sees me, and she's like, "Hey, who's that?" Right? He's like, "Oh," Brad's like, "Oh, that's my friend Yul." She's like, the first question he asked him was, "Is he gay?" I was like, "No, he's not gay." Like, "Are you sure?" "Yeah, I'm pretty sure." So she was like, "Well, set us up," right? And she was kind of kidding, but my friend Brad thought, like, "Hey, you know what? They actually might be a good match." So he took a phone on his photo on his cell phone, and he texted me with the photo and said, "Hey, you have a fan I want you to meet." And I saw the photo, and it was like a terrible grainy photo. The light was bad. I was like, "Is that a girl? Is that her head? Like, what is that?" But I figured, Brad is, a beautiful man, and I figured his aesthetic taste would be far better than mine. So we decided to meet, and we started emailing each other, and we actually met in person a week before the finale, a week before I won. And, at least I fell in love. I don't know about her. I think it took her a while. But then I just really felt like this was one.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah.
Now she's Taiwanese American?
Yeah. So she's not Korean American. So my parents were initially a little bit bummed. My parents always wanted me to marry Korean. And I did too. I thought it would just be a better, kind of easier match, and I wanted my parents to have a good relationship with my wife. But one thing that I did that I think was really helpful is that, most of my life my parents pushed me to meet Korean girls, and I pushed back. I just like, look, I don't want to be set up, I don't want to do that. And sometime in my late 20s, I realized that if I kept pushing back, my parents may never accept whoever I end up being with, especially if she's not Korean, because they would feel like I didn't respect them enough to try. So I made a deal with my mom. I told my mom, look, for the next 2 years, I will just date Korean women.
Was this in writing now?
It was in blood. In fact.
It was in blood.
It was clear.
Okay.
I'll just meet Korean women, and I'll meet anyone you want to set me up with, right? And that was risky for me because I was like, oh, I've seen what my parents have tried to set me up with in the past. I was like, oh, but I figured, look, as long as I really try, and I told my parents, I really will try. I'll try to find someone that I think you'll like and that I love. But if at the end of those 2 years I haven't met the right person, I want you to support me and be open-minded if I meet someone, who's not Korean. And she said, okay. So for 2 years, I basically did that. And I didn't find the right person. And when it was my time to call her to live up to her promise, she tried to back out. But,
of course, like any good mother.
And at least
she's trying hard.
She tried. At least it opened her mind, right? And so they met Sophie, and they got along really well. My parents really loved Sophie a lot. And the other thing that was helping was that time was on my side, right? Because after you hit 30, your parents are just like, okay, we want grandkids. So you know what? At this point, if she's has 2 legs, 2 eyes, a nose, and can have kids, we're good.
And then your beautiful daughter was born.
And then we had the daughter, and game over, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, they're all in.
Well, we are so impressed with your career. At every turn, you have some surprise or another, and you became a lecturer for the FBI.
So after I won Survivor, I got a call from the FBI, and it totally freaked me out. Because I was like, because the first person who won Survivor didn't pay his taxes and went to jail for 4 years in tax evasion, right? So I got this call, I'm freaking out. I'm like, I swear to God, I paid my taxes. Really? No, I did. They're like, no, that's not why we're calling. There was a division within the FBI, the Counterintelligence Division, and they do a lot of training. And one of the things that they try to teach their agents is how to understand people and how to do things like build trust and rapport and recruit informants and get information. And they were using Survivor as a case study on human behavior. So, I mean, if you think about it from an academic standpoint, Survivor, no academic institution will have the resources to put on an elaborate social experiment like Survivor, right? It costs millions of dollars, and to film everything that happens. But if you look at Survivor as a sociological experiment, I mean, think about it. It's like 24/7, you're recording everyone's interactions and faces, and you see how they interact with each other in an environment that's highly competitive. So they were using that to understand human behavior, and they asked me to come in and give a presentation on how I won Survivor and how I was able to work with all these different people. And that went really well. So after that, they asked me to come back and become a regular lecturer.
And then you went on to work with Senator Obama, or we know you met Senator Obama, and how did that come about?
I met him through a friend of ours, Mark Kim. And what really excited me was his ability to excite young people and people of color. And so I started helping out in the campaign and became a surrogate for him. During the campaign, I got to know a guy named Julius Janikowski, who was a law school classmate of Obama, a good friend, and he became the chairman of the Federal Communications Commission. So after Janikowski became the chairman, he asked me to come work for him, and then I went to DC in 2009 and worked there for a couple of years. My formal title is the Deputy Chief of the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau of the Federal Communications Commission. So to me, that showed that, at least in this one instance, we were able to transcend race and skin color so that someone from my community could be a leader irrespective of their ethnic background.
So what do you think the next 4 years will be like with President Obama as president?
I'm hopeful. I think the first 4 years of Obama's administration were obviously very challenging. On a national level, we were in a very, very difficult situation. I'm hopeful that the next 4 years will provide the opportunity for him to do the things that he wanted to do. We still live in a highly charged political environment, but I'm hopeful that now that the election's over, that both parties can come together and really focus on some of the challenges. I think when Obama first came into office, expectations were so high that it was impossible for people to meet them. Now I think expectations are much lower, so hopefully it'll be easier to beat those.
Welcome to the series that takes you to the heart of America, where we give you the big picture of what actually makes this country work.
We'll use aerial photography and real-time satellite data to show how we move and communicate.
This is a story of how that machine keeps us fed 365 days a year. This is America Revealed.
So after you left the FCC, you became the host of PBS series America Revealed.
When PBS asked me about it, I asked them what the show was about, and they said, it's this great series where we're going to be exploring, how America works, right? I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. But one of the main reasons I actually did it was, as far as I know, this is the first time that a national TV show about America has been hosted by an Asian American man. And even though I was on Survivor, you still don't see a lot of Asian American, especially male hosts, like on a show about America. And you would typically think that if it's a show about America, they would get someone who, a lot of people would consider to be like more American, someone who was white. And so I was really appreciative that PBS would consider me for something like this. Because I still think to this day and age, there's still that perpetual foreigner stereotype that, if you look at us because we don't look white or black, people don't think that we're really American. They think that we're foreigners. And even during the show, I saw that. We spent a lot of time in the middle of the country or areas that are non-diverse. And I'd meet these people that I had to interview, and I'd be the only non-white person in the crew. And they'd be like, "Oh, wait, you're the host. Wow, you speak English really well." Well, I've been practicing for a whole year, I hope so, thank you. But yeah, I still don't think it really fits people's mental models that, oh, wait, you're the host of a show about America. And so I thought this would be another thing that could help our community. And hopefully it will provide more opportunities for other people to take on shows where, they're not defined by their race.
So in this series, you had many exciting adventures. You were flying, you were hanging off a tower, and you made it look so easy. People thought that you could do it.
Fake.
Yeah. Well, you are the winner of Survivor after all. So now, but tell us in truth, how was it for you? Was it terrifying?
It was terrifying. I'm scared of heights. I'm really scared of heights. And we did so much stuff filming from high distances. Half the time I was curled up in a fetal position about to have a panic attack. Yeah, it was really scary. People ask me what was harder, being on Survivor or hosting America Revealed. There's no comparison. On Survivor, the tallest thing I had to climb was a coconut tree. On America Revealed, they're throwing me out of airplanes and hanging off these towers, and it was really challenging for me. But again, it was another way for me to try to confront some of these fears and anxieties that I've had my whole life. And so I felt like someone was paying me to go through immersion therapy, right? So why not?
And you're currently the host of another show called Link Asia. So what's that show about?
Yeah, Link Asia is this great news program. It's a weekly show that covers events in Asia. And so the idea is that U.S. commercial news doesn't pay sufficient attention to events going on in Asia, and they do very superficial coverage and seen through a U.S.-centric lens. So the idea is that let's work with all the major Asian broadcasters, NHK in Japan, MBC in Korea, CCTV in China. They feed us their news packages, we translate it, and I, as a host, help frame and provide context to a lot of these stories.
And does it only cover politics, or does it cover
everything?
Culture, economics?
Culture, economics,
Science.
Science.
Yes.
Oh, science and science. We did Gangnam. A lot of the stories that you see in the U.S. news that are big, we often cover them, at least a week or two before they make it into the mainstream. So even the whole thing with Psy, we showed the video early on before. When I think he only had 200 million hits on YouTube.
Oh, only 200 million.
Yeah, only 200. Yeah.
Do you see media as a future career for you?
I do think that media is an incredibly powerful tool to engage a broad set of viewers and to engage them and challenge them and to help them, expand their minds. Being a TV personality is also challenging for your family. When I was filming America Revealed, I was gone for 18 months, going all around the country, and that's hard, so we'll see.
I'd like to talk about your commitment to the Asian American community. We had Jane Hyun, the author of Breaking the Bamboo Ceiling, on our show, and you talk a lot about this bamboo ceiling and raising leaders who can break it.
I interviewed Jane Hyun a number of years ago for a CNN series I did about challenges that Asian Americans face, and so we talked about the bamboo ceiling. I have a lot of respect for what she's doing. For my part, I've been trying to everything that I do, I think I try to at least have some element of it where I feel like I'm trying to give back to the community and help younger kids. When I was a kid, I studied because my parents pushed me. I never studied for myself. And it wasn't until I got to college that I started thinking, hey, maybe I want to become a lawyer, or maybe I want to do this. But in order to do that, I need to get pretty good grades.
We learned, from the Korean Mr. Yul, yeah. How to build self-confidence. The Asian people here is different than the American people. They are more very shy in the school. I want
building social connections with other people so that you can learn from others.
Oh, I think he's really intelligent and athletic, and really smart, like where he went to Stanford. Like you can't just be that nerdy kid in the back. You have to be like open and you have to participate and stuff.
More recently, there's another organization that I helped found, something called the Council of Korean Americans. And this was something that I've been kind of working on for a number of years.
It is an honor to be here today, and it's an honor to have all of you with us. My name is Gautam Raghavan. I work here in the White House Office of Public Engagement as a liaison to the AAPI community. I also wanted to thank a few people. First of all, I just obviously want to thank Sika for partnering with us to make this happen. We're very excited to work with all of you.
You know, what we see here is like in the New York community, there's a very strong Korean American community. In LA, there's another Korean American. But it's not like all these different communities necessarily know each other or work with each other.
People said the same thing during the LA riots in the early 90s. They said that, well, there was no one spokesperson and there was no national organization who could come in support of the LA Korean American community. And then 15 years later, we fast forward and we still don't have anybody. And I think what CK is doing is filling that important vacuum. So we hopefully we encourage you to keep working on that and bringing about the successes of the organization.
Oh, thanks.
Well, with the emergence of Hallyu and K-pop and K-drama, Korean pop culture has really taken center stage in the international scene. And it's cool to be Korean.
It's cool, yeah. No,
I mean, kids are absolutely very proud of being Korean. Now, what do you think about that?
I think it's cool. I think it's awesome. I mean, I really think, I think a lot of the stereotypes and discrimination that people here face have a lot to do with larger geopolitical events, right? If you look at like the proliferation of negative images of Asian Americans on mainstream American television, it often coincides with rising tensions with Vietnam during the Vietnam War, or like during the 1990s when Japan was going to be Japan Inc. and buy everything in America, now with China. But when you start seeing like cool stuff coming out of places like Korea, I think that also helps people out here, right? Because then it's like something cool to be Korean, which is something that I've never experienced before. It's kind of unnerving. It's like, wait, what's going on? It's all freezing over. But no, I think it's great.
Yeah.
Now, you've said in the past that there are two ways to success, two paths. One was kind of the Kim Yeona way, the figure skater who won the Olympic gold medal recently, and then there's the Yul Kwon way.
When he did not win the gold medal.
You did win the gold medal, but still successful in many different areas and obviously very accomplished in your lifetime. So how can you compare it and explain a little bit to our audience what you meant by that?
I think there are two fundamentally different paradigms for education and development. One is what I call the expert model or the superstar model. And the idea is that like from a very early age, you focus really, really hard and you become an expert or specialist in one area. And there's been a lot of research recently showing that like to become an expert, you have to spend 10,000 hours doing something and have very regular and constant feedback. And that's what I call the Yuna model. There's another alternative model, which I think is an older model, but it's sort of like the Renaissance model, where you're exposed to many different areas of study and expertise. You learn how to bring an interdisciplinary approach to problems. Now, I don't think one model is better than the other, right? I think it really depends on the person. Some people thrive in the expert model, the superstar model. They need that discipline and structure. Other people, that's not the right model, right? Steve Jobs would not be successful in that model, right? You need kind of this other model where people can explore and weave together different experiences. The challenge that I see, especially in Korea, is that there's only one model, right? And so a lot of people get burned out in that model. It creates a lot of failures because it's really geared for the success of a few as opposed to the many. And there are lots of people who have lots of talents and potential, but they're never given the ability to develop or express those talents. And that's a huge cost to society. So what I'd like to see is like a melding of the models or just giving people the opportunity to explore both types of models, both types of success.
And, well, you've been quite an inspiration to many people, and we just want to know what career goals you have for yourself.
That's a good question. I'm trying to figure that out right now. I have some opportunities to do more stuff in media, but I'm also trying to balance that against, providing the kind of stability that I think my family needs and deserves. So I don't know. If you have any ideas, let me know.
Well, thanks again.
Thank you very much
thanks for having me on the show.
us.
I really enjoyed it. I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you very much.